Oh, we need to get you a haircut, Tony. You've got some hair growing down your back.
If his wife's lucky, he'll shave his back this weekend.
That's right.
That's a true wife. That's true love right there.
Shave my back for you, honey.
Lovely.
All right, welcome to episode 15 of No Putts Given. Today we have Callaway JAWS Wedges, the most aggressive grooves in golf. We have a new discovery inside the mygolfspy lab and some wet and dry testing, thanks to our Harry Nodwell over here. We've got a new driver from Cleveland, Bryson DeChambeau, playing a new Bridgestone ball. We're visiting Honma and Francais. Let's get it.
Francais.
How do you say let's get it in French?
No Putts Given is powered by mygolfspy, the most extensive reviews in golf. Before you buy, mygolfspy. 9 million readers do it every year. Check us out. So let's start off with the Callaway new JAWS wedges, the MD5 wedges, and what they're claiming, let's get right to it, is the most aggressive grooves in golf, right, Tony?
That's the story, yeah. The most aggressive groove in golf for sure. I don't know necessarily if the world needs a more aggressive groove, but if you think you do, then maybe JAWS is for you.
All right, so just to kind of let everybody know, I mean, Callaway is a serious wedge company at this point. They have just passed Cleveland as the number 2 wedge maker in the market. Vokey still remains number 1. So Callaway is to be taken seriously, at least from a sales point of view, in the wedge game. How do they base their numbers off that, Tony?
I'd have to double check to be absolutely sure, but historically meaning over the last 5 years in my conversation, Callaway has used dollar share, right? So they make the second most amount of money in golf selling wedges, I guess is probably the simple way to look at that.
So for the average consumer out there, what does that mean? Meaning like sales numbers versus what, units?
Yeah, so the two metrics golf companies use, unit share and dollar share. So dollar share is obviously better in terms of, hey, we're generating more revenue with sales, whereas unit is we're selling a whole bunch. Sometimes those correlate, sometimes they don't. So I think Cleveland, if I had to guess, I haven't seen the numbers, educated guess, Cleveland may still be ahead in unit share, but Cleveland wedges tend to be a bit less expensive than Callaway's. So yeah. I think obviously, you just accumulate the wealth that way.
So what's interesting to me, or one of the interesting thing is Roger Cleveland designs these wedges, right? So why is his name not on these?
Yeah, I mean, there's some history, right? So if you don't know, once upon a time, Roger Cleveland, it was the Cleveland in Cleveland Golf. He sold his company, Cleveland Golf, to Dunlop Sports, Shrixon Cleveland, right? That whole, that's all part of the same family. So as far as I understand it, Cleveland retains the rights to the Cleveland name on a wedge. So Roger Cleveland, who designs the wedges for Callaway, or most of them, they can't put designed by Roger Cleveland. I think they tried.
They could put like Cleveland 1 on there.
You know what he should do? I think he should legally change his name to Roger Callaway.
Well, I mean, you get you can kind of see it on the hosel there, right? The .R. So that is the current Roger Cleveland signature on a Callaway wedge. So that's how you kind of know it was a Roger Cleveland design, or at least that Roger played a significant role in the design.
But just think about it. If he changes his name legally, he could sell his name twice.
And get rights twice.
So back to
that's a tough one, right? You sort of design a wedge, you can't even put your name on it. So I guess maybe there's a lesson in that to aspiring golf company owners. Don't name it after yourself. Maybe, I don't know.
I know that was such a big thing for so long. So many people named it after themselves. But so back to the grooves and being self-proclaimed most aggressive groove in golf, whatever that means. And when we used to see the original JAWS wedges, I'll never forget the first day we brought them in. I mean, they shredded, and I'm sure shredded golf balls, right? Like, and you thought as a consumer, you're like, holy shit, these things are literally spinning the cover. I mean, it's tearing the cover off. They're spinning so much. But why is that not a good thing, Tony, for everybody out there listening?
Well, first of all, I'm thinking if I'm looking for efficient ways to peel the covers off of golf balls, find the cut it stuff, get at the various layers. Maybe using the original JAWS wedge could be the right way to do that. But anyway, yeah. So basically, if you're cutting a ball frequently, like everybody's going to cut a ball from time to time, right? Lie condition, you hit it just right and you kind of leave a mark. But basically, shearing of a cover comes from the cover sort of compressing into the groove, but then riding up the face, right? Almost working like a razor blade action on that, and that's generally bad, right? Because that's the ball sliding out of the groove. You kind of want it to stay in that groove, so to speak. So you want it to be almost a clean in, clean out, not kind of sliding up the face and shearing.
Yeah, imagine if you took like a wedge, like the old pure spin wedges with the diamond faces on them, and held them to an orange cover, right? Like a cover of an orange, and just push them together and kind of push the wedge face up. You would see the orange cover start to slide up and then start to tear off, right?
It's like a cheese grater in a sense, where you're actually grating cheese and it comes out,
Yeah, so not only is it not a good thing to tear the cover off a ball and it doesn't mean you're spinning more, but secondarily, balls cost, decent chunk of change, $4 or $5 a piece, right? So
good balls.
So I would expect to see, obviously we haven't tested the new JAWS wedges, but my guess is that the new wedges don't do that anymore.
Yeah, I would hope at this point.
Because they've got that groove and groove technology too, which helps with those less than full shots and a couple other instances as well.
Yeah, and again, our manufacturing tolerances and techniques have improved over the last several years. So hopefully every reputable wedge company is designing a better wedge than they were and still staying within the rules.
So one of the coolest features that I think is available on this, well, let me take that back. I don't think it's one of the coolest things. I think might do. Harry thinks is one of the coolest things about this new release is the fact that there's you can get emojis stamped on this new this new Callaway JAWS MD5 wedge. So that gets me to the obvious next question. And Harry, what emoji are you going to get stamped on your Callaway wedges?
If I had a choice?
No, well, there's only 4 available.
Yeah, there's only 4.
You have
any emoji that
emoji
you would want, and we'll see if Sean Toulon can make that happen for you.
I like a peach.
A peach.
and I'll speak for Sam. He's either the eggplant or the squirt emoji.
Oh, wow. Wow.
He can't defend himself. He's in France.
I don't know how to recover from that one. Tony, what are you going with? I'm sure it's a little bit something more.
Flower.
No, I don't want emojis on my wedges. I'm sorry. I will tell you though, and this is sort of like where it could be cool, but it just doesn't work that way. One of my buddies, every time he chips in or holes out with a wedge, he kind of hits it with the little stamp. He gives it a little ding to kind of commemorate it, and sort of like the Buckeyes on Ohio State helmet, something like that.
I like that.
Obviously, you can't send this into Callaway for a fist bump every time you hole out. So, I mean, you could, but it's not really efficient or probably cost effective. So something like that I would think would be cool. But
you know what?
Other than that, I feel no pressing need to put a maple leaf on my wedge. I don't know.
I'm gonna do that.
Not the maple leaf, but I can see that's going straight in your basket. That
is going straight in my basket. I mean, I like that idea. It's a really good idea. It makes you want to get another stamp on there, so you're going to try harder.
That is a really cool idea. I like that. Who does that? Somebody at McGregor, you said?
No, that's Jose Miraflor, Cobra Puma Golf. That's one of his things.
That's a cool idea, man.
That's a really good idea.
I don't know if he still does it, but yeah, back in the day he was doing it.
Hey, great idea for a wedge company. Send a stamp with the wedge, and then that way you can stamp your own wedge when you chip one in.
And let me tell you, Hose has a filthy, filthy short game, so he
goes through wedges.
I haven't heard his name in a long time. The Rat.
That's a little Rat, yeah.
All right, so we've got the emojis covered, I guess. So you're getting.
I'm good on my emojis. Yeah, peach.
With,
All right.
with rabid enthusiasm.
So let us know which emoji you're gonna like on your Callaway new wedge. And other than that, these wedges are $159 at retail. They will be available at retail $920. They're available in 2 different finishes, 4 or 5-ish grinds.
3 different shafts.
3 different shafts. Tony's showing you a couple.
No, I mean, there's the stock shaft. And
Yeah,
then
3 different stock shafts.
Stock steel, stock graphite, and then a women's graphite. And the big thing here, look, shaft label, grips, everything is blue. So, that's it's blue.
I like blue.
And there will be a women's offering for any women out there listening, which we have 0.3% of our listeners are women. So for that one woman that's out there listening, this will be available for you. And tell more women about No Putts Given. All right, so on to the next thing, which kind of transitions pretty well from one of the features in the Callaway wedge, and that's the groove and groove tech that they have, which helps with wet conditions. And this week,
especially wet conditions, Callaway, I think they put it on the kind of that shorter shot. So really kind of closer to the green is where you see the biggest benefit on that, but a benefit nonetheless.
Trivia question for you, Harry. How many micro grooves or grooves and grooves does the Callaway wedge have?
159.
Tony?
Oh, what was it, like 84 points of contact?
Bingo. 84 points of contact.
Between the grooves and the micro grooves, see?
So when we're talking about wet versus dry, the mygolfspy test facility really is there twofold, right? It's to do most wanted testing, but what I love about it most is what we call the lab. And lab testing is not most wanted testing. It's really there as a curiosity. So different things come up. They're not as large scale tests. You learn a lot from most wanted testing, but generally speaking, how that goes is we do this massive test, collect all this data, and then we spend days diving into that data, sometimes months over the a year's time, and you start learning stuff from that. But you can more quickly learn some things from a smaller scale test and what we call labs. And that's exactly what happened this week, which is one of the coolest discoveries we found in there. And Tony, as far as I know, unless you know something I don't think anyone has ever discovered this. I've never seen it published anywhere. Have you?
Well, there's certainly been some wet wedge testing done. So, Andrew Rice did some. I think we actually, in fact, I'm fairly certain we actually published an article from Andrew Rice several years ago where he did some wet wedge testing. And recently, the guys at TXG who do awesome stuff did a little bit of a wet wedge test too. And so we thought, hey, it would be really cool to integrate a wet component into our wedge test. Talk to a few guys to come up with all right, what's the best way to do it? And we kind of went in with a game plan, and then Harry started messing around, and we really found some interesting stuff.
All right, so let me set you up a little bit here, Harry. What this means is this. We do a wedge test, right? But like we talked about last week, No Putts Given, wedges perform drastically differently when dry versus wet, right? So what you want is no matter what condition you're playing in, for that wedge to perform exactly the same in a perfect world. So is what happens when you add all these variables and elements that you're going to see in your round of golf. And what we found really quickly, and what others had found too, Ping included, TXG and some others, like you said, Andrew Rice, that we published a while ago, was the fact that when you introduce wetness to the ball, spin rates on wedges can plummet, right? Which is something you don't want to have happen. So in a really short test in the facility, we did wet-dry testing. And we did it with one variable, which is what most people do. They spray the ball with water. And what we saw was the wedge spin with the worst wedge in the test so far versus the best was drastic. But what we found, or what Harry found, was that for a lot of wedges, there was only 300 or 400 RPM difference between spraying the ball only and a dry wedge scenario. So then Harry came up with a new test protocol, or a new curiosity lab kind of test. And what was that, and what did you find?
Well, when I was sat there performing the test for the wet wedge, I was seeing, like you said, like 300, 400 revs difference between wedge to wedge. And then all of a sudden there would be one that goes into like 1,500 less just by spraying the ball. And I was like, why is that? And I looked at the wedge, and it was one without the milled face. So it's just a regular wedge without the milled face, with just grooves. So then I was like, all right, well, that kind of correlates and makes sense. I was like, well, all right, so let's put this to a real world scenario. And when we're going into a real world scenario, if the ball's going to be wet, 9 times out of 10, the ground's going to be wet. So I ran a test on a wedge that was a very good wedge. It is still a very good wedge, compared to another wedge that I know
to be really good.
To be really, really good. And I saw huge differences in spin relate.
So basically, you're saying when you added another addition to the wetness, meaning not just spraying the ball, which is what most people have done, you added ball plus ground.
Yep.
Correct? I saw an additional difference.
And then that got me thinking again, all right, so if that's the case, every golfer out there is going to be one of those ones that is lazy, like me, and you'll hit a couple of practice shots on the ground, on a wet condition ground, then your face is wet, and then you wipe it with your foot, you get your club face and you wipe it with your foot, get the grass off, and then you just hit. So that's what golfers do. They don't go and dry the face off, drying it off as hard as they can to get that dry face and the wet ball. So once I did that, there was more.
So 3 scenarios: ball wet, ball and ground wet, and then you did ball, ground, and face wet.
Face wet.
And what you saw was every time you added another situation where water was involved to the new scenario, spin dropped.
Spin dropped, but the launch angle stayed pretty much exactly the same when any part of the wet condition enters the club face.
But still higher than dry.
A lot higher than dry, yes.
So the 2 biggest things are launch goes up when wet is introduced, and spin goes down.
Which makes sense because it rolls up your face and it's launching higher.
I think the coolest part... Go ahead, Tony.
Yeah, I mean, I think just on the quick numbers you sent over, and what we saw when we did the ball test as well, when we did a wet portion of that, can be in the condition we tried during the ball test, 4 degrees, and then if it's with a matte cover golf ball, because they don't that type of finish for whatever reason doesn't let the water run off as much. Matte colored balls, you're going to get higher still, but yeah, I mean, so 4 degrees of launch, plus or minus, sometimes a little bit more. That's just from moisture in introducing moisture into the equation.
So why is this such a cool discovery? Well, I'll give you one thing that came to mind right in the studio when you discovered it, right? And that's, well, everybody was spraying the ball to introduce wet, right? I've seen it at a few different places that have done the wet wedge test, and you do see a difference. But really what we're trying to get to is what most closely relates to real world scenarios. And in a real world scenario, like you said, if ball's wet, ground's going to be wet.
Yeah.
A lot of times people take a practice swing, club's wet. So at the worst, meaning all 3 have water, which is what's happening to a lot of people, I don't think the average golfer would even think to go, man, if I take a practice swing and I have any water on my face, I need to 100% dry that to get back to the level of dry, right? Conditions. Also, if you have a lift, clean, in place type of scenario that you're playing,
you need to take advantage of it.
You take advantage of that and dry that ball off, or Tony calls that
dry in place.
Lift dry in place. So one, spin can make a huge difference, right? When water is introduced to the 3 scenarios. But the bigger thing that I think people, when you relate this to, okay, now how is this going to impact your score? Tell them why this is a big discovery you think in that. So what is the difference when you have, let's say on a wedge shot 60 yards, and you go wet ball, wet club, wet ground versus dry? What is the spin difference on average, basically? And then also, what does that equal on a rollout difference? And then how does that affect?
Well, Matt, can we just pull up the graphic of the one that I just did? So
that's a new ping.
So this is the new ping. So from dry conditions, you're spinning at I was spinning at 7,375.
This was what, 65-yard target, right?
60 yards. So 60 yards. My launch angle was 31.9. And then we introduced the wet ball, which was dropped by 100 revs which is not a big difference.
Well, just so everybody knows out there, this is best case scenario. This is a wedge that's built for this specific task.
Correct.
You're not seeing, even at the worst, but 600 revs different, right?
Right.
So all three conditions is what you're seeing. You're seeing at the top the dry, the wet ball, and then the wet ball and wet face, and then the wet ball, wet face, wet ground. Okay?
Yep.
So those are the three scenarios you're seeing, and you see each time a drop off. Now pull up another wedge that is a good wedge and not the worst in the test.
This is a very good wedge, by the way. So in the dry, it span 7,427 with 32 launch, and then you put a wet ball in there, and it drops about 400. So and the launch condition, the launch angle goes up by nearly 2 degrees, and then you add another variable, which is wet ball and wet face, and it drops to a dramatic 5,222. Like that's huge. And then if you go one more and you drop it in with all three variables, with wet ball, wet face, and wet ground, you're down to 4,860 revs.
You're 30 to 40% reduction in spin.
Yes. And that's with me, like, consistent as I can do it, strike it in the same locations, same way every single time, kind of like a robot. And you're looking at what, 4, 5, 6, 7, 3,000 revs difference from dry to
so let's
extreme.
get to how this impacts on the scorecard. So that equals, go slide that over to the yardage differences.
Yeah, so in this, it's not that as drastic, but it is on paper. So it rolls out 2 yards from dry conditions, which equates to 6 feet, which then you apply it to make percentage, which you see on tour, and that's 65% of the time you will make that putt.
No, wait, start with the distances. The difference, what is the make percentage from X feet, and then when you add 6 feet, what's the make percentage?
Yeah, so from 6 feet, it's 65%. You make it.
Okay.
If you go up to 12 feet, it's 30%.
So it's a 30% drop off in make percentage.
Yep. And then what I've seen in the testing facility with the average golfer, it rolls out to 7 yards, which is 21 feet. And then your make percentage goes down to 13%.
So what were you saying, Tony?
I mean, it obviously the percentage differences depends on sort of how close you would have been, but the big thing to take away is, and it's going to increase more as you add moisture, but you're going to get higher launch. You're going to get probably, in a lot of cases, more carry if the contact is still reasonably good, and you're going to get more rollout. So it's about understanding if you can't control all the moisture, right? To a degree, you can keep your face dry, but if you can't control all the moisture, it's super important to understand what that's going to do to the golf ball, assuming you hit it cleanly, right? You always have to kind of assume you can put a good swing on it and good contact, and then understand what the influence is going to be from the additional moisture.
Yeah, so let's talk about this real quick, Harry. So there were kind of 3 scenarios you saw, right? So it was just regular grooved wedge like the Miura we tested.
Yeah.
Then a grooved wedge with some type of micro grooves in between, or a milled face in between, which added some more texture, which was better than just grooves.
Yes.
And then on top of that, you would take the extreme level, which would be the new pings with like the hydrophobicity finish it on it. Do you know what that finish is, Tony, by chance?
Like it's Hydro Pearl, might be Hydro Pearl 2.0 right now, but it's Ping calls it Hydro Pearl, and the big thing is, right, that the water doesn't bead on it; it just kind of runs off. That's the whole idea.
It's kind of like waxing your car,
That's
right?
exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah,
we said, we talked about it last week. It's one of those things where they tell you about it, and you're like, oh, cool, nice. But when you start to look at it in terms of practical application and what we see when we test, or what we've seen with this wedge test so far, you start to go, all right, so maybe this actually does matter.
Yeah, it definitely looks to so far. So we're going to be adding this into our wedge test. We actually scrapped all of our data for a wet test based on just spraying the ball, which is how a lot of other people had done it previously, to add the 3 conditions that we think are most closely related to real golf, right?
Yeah, what everyday golfer is going to actually do on the golf course.
Yeah, so
on a dewy conditions, and then where you have rain, a moderate amount of rain, That's exactly what we're testing for.
Yeah, so what we're going to do is include this in our wedge test this year, and then we're going to do a labs afterward to show you the differences from the different wedges with the 3 different variables and show you how much of a difference there is, because we're seeing some pretty eye-opening stuff. The 2 examples you gave here aren't even the best and worst. Ping is the best so far, and the worst so far that we've seen in a short, small test, so just want to make sure we mention that, is that Miura wedge, right?
Yeah, there's other wedges there that don't have the milled face, but I wanted to just pick one, and that was the one.
Yep.
That was the guinea pig. But it was a very eye-opening test just to even watch and to perform. When
will the results, you think, come out now that we've kind of gone back to the drawing board with this, because we know this is a better way to do it?
I mean, I can't really put a solid timeline, but I'm thinking maybe 2 weeks' time.
Okay.
Potentially, and then we got to obviously build the article and publish it. So maybe 2 or 3 weeks, yeah. All
right, so for those that are interested in seeing the final results, the Most Wanted Wedge Test is going to be pushed back 2 to 3 weeks, and this year it will include some of the data. We don't know how we're going to present it yet, but we will present it there, and then we will have a labs article that will just dive strictly into wet versus dry. Tony, any other things that you have to say about the wet versus dry wedge test and kind of the discovery that our boy Harry
You can call me Albert Einstein if you want.
It's just one of those things where it's not talked about a ton. It's probably not something a lot of golfers consider. And even on a short shot, right? Just kind of looking down at that ball and being able to assess the situation and say, all right, the ground is wet, the ball is wet. Do I need to play this differently than I would if it's, 2 p.m. and everything's been baking in the sun all day? Like I said, I mentioned to you in my member guest that I played with Chris Nickel, that was one of the things, we were playing lift, clean, in place. And especially when I got close to the green, I was taking advantage of the rules to thoroughly dry the ball before the shot. And I think it definitely made a difference for sure. So
did you dry the face too?
Oh my, yeah. Dry everything.
Yep.
Everything but the ground.
Well, I think the takeaway for right now, until we come out with more data, is if you look down at your club, like Tony said, in any day of golf or any shot you're going to have, and you see your face is wet on an iron or a wedge, I would suggest probably drying off from now on.
It might be a pain in the ass, but it's worth it.
For sure.
All right, so moving on, we're going to go to, so I hear Bridgestone has a new ball that Bryson's testing. What are you hearing about that, Tony?
Yeah, so Bryson this week is playing right now it's being called a prototype Tour BX. This is going to be, call it a prototype.
Left dash?
No, it's the new ball. So I think it's probably well past prototype at this point. I think Bryson is playing what's going to be the 2020 Tour BX, and we can probably assume safely that it's Bridgestone. There'll be a 2020 Tour BXS and RXS as well. But the big thing, again, not a lot out there about the ball. Obviously, Bridgestone keeping the cards tight to the vest, but what I understand is that this is going to be a big cover material story. So kind of a change to the urethane formulation, or, I can't even be certain that it is urethane at this point, but definitely a change to the cover material, some degree, the cover formulation. And the big story I'm hearing is, and why sort of Bryson's making the switch, is improved greenside spin, upwards of, I believe, 700 RPM on on a 15-yard shot. So really kind of significant gain. And again, it really is just that, from what I understand, the greenside type stuff where you're going to see a huge difference. So Bryson obviously likes what he's seeing. And I think, too early to say, but I think Bridgestone is going to end up billing this as a significant technology change, like quantum leap forward kind of thing. Perhaps even on the order of the switch to rubber now with a cover that, it's tough to get to that kind of level. But I think they kind of see it as really the biggest breakthrough in golf ball technology in quite some time. But TBD on what it actually means.
Yeah, so remember I think it was a PGA show, right? They were super excited about this ball back then, right? And like telling us how this new cover is going to revolutionize the golf ball industry and be the next kind of, I guess they didn't say it, but when the ball moved from Balata to kind of, Pro V1 type cover, this is kind of that revolutionary change.
In very non-specific terms, yeah, they kind of talked about this kind of being, they think, a really big thing. So, if you can make a ball that spins a lot more around the green, right, and if the numbers hold true, right, if you can get several hundred even on a 15-yard shot, that would be pretty significant. So if you can do that kind of thing without adversely impacting the kind of spin conditions you're getting off the driver, right? So if you still can maintain that high speed on the driver and ideally kind of make it go reasonably straight, right? You don't want a ball that spins too much off of the driver. At least a lot of us don't. And then sort of really boost spin around the green. That would be a big deal, because I think as much as some people that have been taught, right, you want to get that ball rolling as quickly as you can. There are certainly those of us who like to say, look, if the flag is 30 yards, I want to hit it as close to 30 yards as I possibly can and not have to worry about the slope of the green and the break of the green and guys who didn't repair their ball marks and things like that. So again, spin on a golf ball to a large degree is control. So if you can get more control around the green, yeah, that would be really cool. But again, vaporware at this point, right? None of us have actually seen the golf ball yet.
What's the saying? It's all bullshit till it ain't bullshit.
It's all bullshit till it's not, right?
That ball sounds perfect for me.
That's what I was just going to ask you. So that was the problem, am I right, that you had with the Bridgestone ball when you tested it?
Yeah, so I couldn't spin the Tiger Woods ball. I couldn't get enough spin to generate around the chip shots and the 15 yards and in. I couldn't really get it. So this ball right here sounds, like perfect for me.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Because I didn't want to lose. I didn't want it to spin more off my driver, so I wanted the Tiger Woods ball off the longer ones, and then it sounds like I want the Bryson ball in the short.
It'll be this technology is going to find its way into the entire lineup. So it's not just this will be. The cover is going to be, I would assume, right? It's safe to assume that they're going to put this same new material, whatever it turns out to be, on the X, on the XS, the RX, and the RXS. So your fitting variables are still going to be the same as they've always been. They're just going to give you a little bit, sort of, hopefully, right? A little
interesting.
What ball are you playing now?
I've actually changed to the Pro V1.
Have you?
Yeah, just because I can feel that a little bit around the green. I can control it a lot more.
What ball are you playing, Tony?
I'm still kind of between X and left dash as I try and figure some things out. Although based on the spin numbers that I was seeing yesterday during my lesson, we may be looking at a whole new ball before too long.
That's two-piece.
Never play a two-piece. I would never.
We got some kick X's around here somewhere.
We got some kick X's.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on to the next new release, and that's the Cleveland Launcher HB Turbo. And I just love when somebody puts the word turbo in a name of a product because it just is awesome.
It makes me think of Too Fast, Too Furious, or something like turbo injected.
I just remember that movie, that character Turbo from that movie, the snail or what it was. You know what I'm talking about? The animated?
No idea.
No.
All right. No. Matt knows from back there. So anyway, Cleveland just announced this week the launch of their newest driver, and that is the Launcher HB Turbo. And it got a very quick response on social media. And I'll just read a couple. So we showed the pictures when it releases, and Will Kramer on Twitter says, ping calling on line 1. And Jordan Fuller says, looks like a turbulator-inspired design. So, yes. So let's just go back to a couple things. One in that is this is the second HB, the Launcher HB line that they've come out with. The first one actually did well in our testing for slower swing speeds. Finished first in carry. And, it did really well. It just kind of got overall, the subjective feedback was kind of plain, kind of boring. So they made it less plain, less boring. But the interesting thing for me is they say if you're a 2 handicapper, these are not for you. So who are they for? And they say, get this, it's for the normal human being that wants to play golf for fun, which then brings me to me seeing a tweet from Jamie Sadlowski saying that he's playing this driver, which I thought he was one of those pros, and by the way, hits it a mile, and said he gained 7 miles an hour ball speed. So Harry, I know you and Jamie have had a head-to-head battle before. And you've tried the driver.
Maybe.
Did you gain 7 miles an hour ball speed?
I did not.
What was your result so far?
I was 1 mile an hour slower.
Compared to what?
My G400. Okay. But so you can't really compare
Jamie
it.
Has
So
a different version of it than
but obviously it's a different shaft in both clubs. So you can't definitively say that that's the reason. But it's very light. It's super light.
They're quoted as saying the goal is to create a driver for those who just want to launch it. So that's what it's for. Do you want to launch it?
I mean, it went in the air. It launched in the air. I mean, it's. I want to have a competition against Jamie at the 2020 PGA show.
He's got to play that driver.
He's got to play his driver, if it is that driver. Against my ping or my gamer at the time.
You might get a little closer this year.
I might by a couple more yards.
We'll see. So
I don't know. I've been hitting the gym, so I've been going over the not parallel. I'm going past parallel now, creating some more lag.
Tony, what do you got to say about this driver? I mean, look, at the end of the day, we just put out the pictures, and everybody was saying it looks like a ping. So, I mean, not the turbulators, but the Dragonfly technology.
Yeah, a little sort of, I would say, crown cosmetics. Probably the safe way to cover that.
Yeah.
And a little bit of it's similar paint scheme with the red, right? But, how many years into the world of golf equipment are we, right? We're about a century deep at this point. And so everything looks like something else, some certainly more than others. We saw the pictures, right, from Callaway of some of their new putters that are very clearly tailor-made Spider inspired. And so, at some point, I guess the big question is, right, what's the statute of limitations on when it's cool to just make something that's obviously inspired by something else? But look, every driver more or less looks the same already at this point, so it's sort of how you trick out the crown and paint it. But at the end of the day, like, all right, if you like the way it looks, fine. If it looks like a thing, so what?
I think it looks good.
You like it?
Yeah. Well, it looks like my ping.
It looks better than the original Launcher HB, right?
Yeah, a lot better. I mean, I didn't like the top half, the top dome of it, and then it drops down with a white line behind it. And from what I remember, I didn't like that kind of look.
Look different.
We've got a little bit of the high bore in this too, right? Not quite to the extent of the original, but a little bit of a drop in the crown.
Hey, shout out to Nate Radcliffe for that one.
Yeah, the industry misses Nate, I think.
I think that high bore was ahead of the curve for sure.
Yeah, just kind of an innovative thinker, right? Not afraid to do something a little bit different.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we can't knock it until we test it. So we'll look forward to putting that into test in 2020 and seeing how it fares.
And like we said last year, did well.
Yeah, it's one of those kind of anti-slice, keep it fun, right? Nobody has fun when they're slicing balls into the woods. So that's where this fits. It's not trying to be, for all the, hey, it looks like a G400. It's not trying to be a G400 or, maybe a G400 or 410 SFT maybe, but
yeah, I'm waiting for a company to come out with if you're the one that hooks the shit out of it, waiting for one that comes out with a really open club face so you fade it more. Is that going to be a thing?
You need that? I need that, right?
Yeah, you need that.
that's your toe setting.
Yeah, but it doesn't.
Flat lie angle.
But it doesn't do it enough.
Not for me.
Not for you.
All right, so moving on to a couple of things that's going on with mygolfspy and what we're doing kind of behind the scenes, and that is a couple of our guys in a couple different places. One was at Honma, And Tony, any type of information we have other than they've got a new iron, and that's called the XP.
New lineup, right?
Yep, new lineup. They've got an XP1 iron and an XP1 driver that I think people might be interested in. What do you know about these so far, Tony, if anything?
Yeah, I mean, it's a kind of the similar space. So they've got their, as the stuff we just talked about, right? It's intended for probably slower swingers, a little higher handicap, although, there's not always a correlation there. But again, kind of in that Zexio premium sort of lightweight space, I guess is probably the best way to describe it. What we saw, right? So we sent John Barba for this one. I couldn't make it. So we sent John. It looks really good, right? I think kind of clean, not off-putting in any way, which is something you don't always see in that category. It's not sort of blinged out, tricked out. It looks like a legitimate iron.
Good.
Yeah, that looks like something you would see from a Callaway or Mizuno at that level of iron,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no. So I think sort of an expansion of the Honma line, which at least suggests that they're not screwing around and they're here to play serious.
Big question though for you, Tony, is this? It's something we've heard. It seems like since we started mygolfspy from all of these different companies that you see pop up, 14, Honma, you name them, and they all say they're trying to figure out North America, and none of them really have successfully for the long term. Maybe a year or two they'll see some type of bump, but long term just nothing really. So do you think that this is their best shot to figure out North America with the group that they've got?
I think of all the companies you mentioned and all the companies that Chris profiled over the last couple of years, like this is the one that has the best chance to stick around and grow within the North American market, right? So signing Justin Rose helped a little bit, right? Because that's instant tour credibility with a name that people know, right? Former number one. So that's the tour presence I think every company needs. You at least need one guy that people know. They did that. I mean, they've got, obviously Mark King was a consultant. So TaylorMade to Adidas to Honma in an unofficial capacity to some degree. So that, Mark obviously knows the market, and he handed off when he left to become CEO of Taco Bell, which I still struggle to believe was a real thing, but that actually happened. So Mark left for Taco Bell and handed Honma over to John Kawaja, who was a VP at TaylorMade for a number of years. So
part of the reason why they had trouble figuring out North America, would you not agree, Tony, would be the fact that they didn't have people that knew, that had already at one point figured out North America, right?
Yeah, there are guys who, Honma has guys who know the North American market better than certainly I think the other companies do, and like I said, they have a quality product. So John was at an event for the opening of what they call Honma House, right, which is their headquarters, their fitting center, right? And they've engaged the media, right? It was an actual media junket. Said, hey, look, this is who we are, this is what we do, and here's where we're doing it. That's something these other guys haven't done. So just to be able to sort of do what it takes to create brand stories, things like that, they're already probably 5 steps ahead of anybody else who's tried to make the leap from the Asian market to the market. They've
also signed Wedge Wizard, who's like a phenomenal stamper of wedges. They've hired him. I mean, it makes that a little bit fun. You have the customization of your fun wedges as well. So I think that's a good addition too.
Yeah, and they brought Barbara out there, which
is also amazing and fun.
They should sign Barbara.
Significant amount of other guys as well. Yeah, for sure. Full-on media event.
Yeah, but anyway, so Honma, expect to see some new stuff from them obviously next year, and some noise being made. And they've got a new driver. Matt, can you show the Xp1 Driver when you get a second? Have you seen the driver Xp1, Tony?
Yeah, I mean, it looks traditional, sort of that. That's more of the traditional, almost kind of JDM look to it, I think, right?
But it's got that Adams TaylorMade slot in there.
Yeah, I was gonna say it has that slot in there. It has the shiny bottom of the face where I used to have that club.
I can see Barbara's got an iPhone 10 too from the reflection of that XP1.
I guarantee, like some of the Instagram girls have been looking at it instead of going for the phone. They've been, oh, this looks good. There's a mirror at the bottom of there.
All right.
In fact, I'd probably do that too.
Harry, let's admit it, you practically are an Instagram girl.
I am, yeah, without the followers.
Oh. Well, I think if they go back to your first Instagram post, if anyone wants to, just go back, not to his most recent, probably year or two, but just go back to check out Harry. Old English. What is your?
Old English at G-Spy.
There you go. Really easy to remember. So go to like the very beginning of his post. You'll see some modeling shots.
I mean, there was a couple.
Yeah.
We might have. You might have did it in a cardboard cutout of me. But
I love that cardboard.
Right, proper dandy.
Hey, it looks splendid. I look splendid.
So one other place that we're visiting, Sam Robinson, Director of Hard Goods Testing, and Chris Nickel, Director of Business Development through mygolfspy, is in France visiting Inesis/Decathlon. So for anyone out there that has never heard of those two, which I hadn't either until last year, Decathlon is kind of the Dick's Sporting Goods of golf in France.
Yeah, they're huge in Europe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're more than just golf, right?
Yeah, they're bikes, they're running.
So full on Dick's Sporting Goods of France.
Yeah. I think golf only makes up, he said, 5 to 10% of the store, I think. So anyway, they had visited us this past year, and we were just really impressed, not just with some of the products. The shoes, though, finished best value, amazingly comfortable. The rangefinder was the best value, and the ball did well in our ball test. So they have a full line of gear. But what was most impressive, like, do you remember that presentation they gave?
It was one of the best ones I've seen. Yes.
Like, thoroughly impressed. Came in thinking nothing.
I thought, like, this is just. I looked at their clubs online. I was like, this is just another starter set and blah blah blah. But I was pleasantly and proven wrong.
One of the most impressive presentations that I have ever seen given about a product line or a brand or a service to mygolfspy. And really, it's just their whole philosophy. They are really dead set on education, more so than just sell hype, right? And one of the coolest things I remember was, do you remember how they talked about the store being laid out for the golf section?
Yeah.
So imagine if you walk into a, Dick's Sporting Goods, or not Dick's Sporting Goods, but let's say a big box store that's golf related and it's all golf and it's huge, right? You walk in and there's a sea of clubs. Where do you go?
You don't know where to look.
Right? So how they have it laid out is kind of 3 sections: beginner, intermediate, and kind of advanced. And based on who you are, that section is purely for you. So for example, you go into the beginner section, no driver in there is over 43 inches. Really smart, right? Even the tees that they sell look different.
Yeah.
Just overall, the philosophy broken down by the type of golfer was really well thought out. How they designed product, I thought, was really logical and well thought out. And then, from there, we decided to go check them out and learn more about what they're doing over in France. And they have their own R&D facility, their own golf campus,
like 9-hole golf course on their facility.
Yeah. So how it's kind of laid out is in their building, the outside part of the building is all the R&D guys. The inside are non-cubicles, just an open space. The outside starts designing products. Literally, they kind of throw the prototypes to the guys and girls in the middle, have them go test it on the 9-hole course, refine it over and over and over. Really cool, It
is really cool. And all their products, they're really well priced. Like at least the shoes and the rangefinder was very, very well priced, and the balls. So they're not expensive, but you still get a really good bang for the buck. Yeah.
So we just thought it would be an interesting new product line to expose mygolfspy readers to it, because it's just something new. And at the end of the day, we want to find not just good performing products for you, but if we can find them and save you a few dollars, that's
even better.
Even better.
And
right?
they've just opened up a store in San Francisco. That's the first store in the US.
Yeah, so a couple products to check out if you're looking are the Inesis shoes. I think they're $65 to $85.
I think they're $80.
$80?
Yeah. Really good. And it's literally it was more comfortable than Skechers, dare I say it, because Skechers is a phenomenally comfortable shoe.
You mean Skechers from last year?
From last year, sorry, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it's whatever they've done with that combination with the foam and the insole. Kudos.
Would you say out of all the shoe testing you've done, that's the most comfortable shoe you've ever tested?
Yes.
Yeah. Pretty impressive for an $80 shoe, right?
Yeah.
Rangefinder?
And just put the traction on there it's like wearing spikes that go in 4 feet into the ground. If you want a stable shoe, that is a very good shoe.
Yeah, and while I would say it's not the most aesthetically pleasing shoe, neither are some of the shoes that are charging more money and
Correct.
do not perform as well in our tests. So
you can find an ugly shoe at any price.
that's very true. So really, that's it. That's what we're doing today. And a couple things before we go, and that is the Titleist Contest that we've got going on. I don't know who in the world would not want a all expense paid trip to Titleist TPI, but if you're one of the people that don't want to, don't pay attention in the next 30 seconds. If you are interested in having a whole new bag of golf equipment, getting fitted like a pro or fit like a pro, and getting the airfare and the hotel and everything covered, make sure you go on to YouTube and subscribe for our YouTube channel to be entered to win.
Yeah,
Tony?
I mean, that Titleist Oceanside facility, and this is why we reached out to Titleist when we had this idea. The Oceanside facility, TPI, where they do fittings, is absolutely phenomenal. It's unbelievable that they have this facility where, guys like me and guys whoever wins the contest can go, where they have, like a bunker facility with just multiple different types of sand, and the driving range is laid out to look like a golf hole, so you get the fitting experience is like more like being on a course than you'll find just about anywhere else. I would think it's just it's phenomenal.
I've entered and I hope I win.
right in the middle of Carlsbad too, which if you've never been to Carlsbad, is just like a city of small office parks. And so you go from, they're technically Oceanside, but it's Carlsbad. So you go from, like, you're driving through all these different office parks, and then all of a sudden you're like, it's just this stunning golf facility, green grass everywhere. Yeah, it's
Did you say out of all the golf trips you've done, Tony, that's your favorite one?
In terms of like the facilities, the fitting facilities, yeah, by far. I think, look, don't get me wrong, the Ely Callaway Performance Center is really nice, especially since they kind of overhauled it with Gohan. So it's a beautiful facility. TaylorMade Kingdom is absolutely beautiful as well. But if I'm being brutally honest, Oceanside is.
Tony's trying not to piss anybody off right now.
Yeah, he's really trying hard not to. He wants to go
like, no, let me get it right. I still want to go to Callaway and TaylorMade.
Still want to go everywhere.
Like you're not going to go there and have a bad time by any stretch, but Oceanside TPI is absolutely a cut above, and that's just how it is.
Yeah. So just a reminder, if you want to be entered to win that contest, you have to be subscribed to our YouTube channel. And the last but not least, we've got a ball marker, the last one that I think we might ever do, by the way. Mm-hmm. So we've done a major marker for the last couple years, and this one is one that was called Incognito by a follower, and that will be released today at what time?
3 o'clock today.
3 o'clock today. So 99 made, all made in America. All come with a bag tag that's handmade in America, all individually serialized and numbered. And so 99 of them. They'll probably go quick. They usually do. So 3 o'clock, be there, be square. And that's it for today. No Putts Given episode 15. Oh, anything else, Tony?
No.
You're ready to get out of here. You got a kid party this weekend?
Yeah, daughter is. So we had the family party last night. My daughter's birthday was yesterday. Turned 9. I celebrated by posting that ridiculous picture of her on Twitter with wedges in her mouth.
Dude, great picture. I love that. That was awesome.
So it was funny. So I had her take it. It was with JAWS. I remembered that I took the original, and she put it in her, I was just handing it. She was teething when she took the original, so cold wedge in the mouth probably felt pretty good.
You seen it?
So I had her recreate it, and I was like, so she looked at it, she's like, "You're not going to post that on Facebook, right?" I was like, "No, I won't post it on Facebook." And so
Twitter
she turned around and I immediately put it on Twitter. She wasn't happy, but that's fine.
Hey, September babies are always good-looking babies. That's an awesome pic.
Pretty cool.
That's cool.
She does not look happy that she looked happy taking the first one. She looked like, "Dad, what are you doing?"
Yeah, she kind of went along with it, but it wasn't with a lot of enthusiasm.
So what are you doing this weekend, Harold?
My fiance's actually giving me a birthday day, as it was on Tuesday.
Versus like an hour or a minute?
Yeah, so it's a day.
Okay.
So I don't know what she's doing. We'll do something fun, I'm sure.
Oh, is that tomorrow?
That's tomorrow, yeah.
Sweet. Well,
What are you doing?
well, wife's in Wisconsin for work, for coaching. So me and the kids are gonna throw a house party, man.
Hell yeah. It'll be, you know what? It'll be like Mrs. Doubtfire, like just throwing a pie in the bag.
Do the kids know that there is no law when you're drinking the claw? Are they aware?
Oh my god.
What does that even mean?
Don't. He's trying to become young again.
Good for you for not knowing. Just good.
He's trying to be young. He's trying to be young.
What is
No,
that?
I do.
It's White Claw.
I do not drink the claw.
It's a flavored beer.
Interesting.
It's a seltzer, Harold. Get it right.
It's
Alcoholic seltzer,
no.
White Claw. It's the
Interesting.
new hot shit, man.
It's a new Bud
It's
Light.
Zima for a new generation.
Ooh, it's the Zima replacement.
Zima for a new generation.
You know who used to drink Zima that you should bust his balls about?
Samuel.
Chucky.
Ooh.
He's put Jolly Ranchers in them. Yep.
And that is White Claw right there. It's Zima with the Jolly Rancher.
Well, all right. Enjoy your White Claw. I'm gonna enjoy my gluten-free Glutenbergs, and we out.
All right. See you.